All right, welcome back, students. So I mentioned before that one of the important jobs that you need to be able to do in Social 30 is to be able to read a passage of text and then differentiate what kind of ideology is present in that particular block of text. So we've done that with the spectrum of the status quo, right? We looked at, identifying a block of text as liberal or conservative or reactionary or radical/revolutionary. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at a series of statements, and we're going to go through and we're going to identify these statements as far as their position on the economic spectrum. And we're not really going to focus too much on the mixed economy because that one's kind of hard to put our finger on, but as far as socialism and communism on the left, and then capitalism and fascism on the right, what we're going to do is we're going to read these statements and then identify them as one of these particular ideologies. And then, as you can see, with the next document here, what we're going to do is we're going to use the ideas from this to populate a cheat sheet that helps us learn about these different ideologies. So we're going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. Depending upon how long the time is of this video, I might break it up into two halves perhaps, right? So yeah, I think that's what we'll do. We'll break this up into basically, 24 statements. So I'll do the first 12 and then we will quickly finish that video off, and then we'll do the next 12. Okay, now with that being said, folks, I'm going to use my handy dandy tablet pen here, and we're going to highlight aspects that I think are important, and then we're going to populate it into our particular chart, right? And I'll put a copy of this chart up for you so that you have it. And guys, the reason we're doing this is because this is a cheat sheet for your diploma exam. When I say cheat sheet, I don't mean you're going to bring this into the diploma exam, because obviously that is literally academic dishonesty and you'll get a 0 if that happens. However, by the end of the semester, right, you're going to be going through so much material, you might kind of forget the essence of what socialism believes or the essence of what capitalism believes. Well, you're going to go to this sheet and you're going to have it handy, and you're going to say, okay, what do I need to know about communism? Boom, 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 boom. Here's all these ideas. You just got them laid out for you. What do I need to know about fascism? Boom, 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 boom. And it's all laid out for you. All right, with that being said, let's have a look at the first statement here. Okay, so number 1 says, we must pursue a society that frees the competitive nature. I'm going to highlight that because that's important. And of its citizens encourages their initiative, right? Encourages their initiative and permits technical advances necessary to economic growth. So the goal of this particular society, right, in this economy or this economic system, is to see the economy grow. So we have competition. We're focused on initiative, meaning like when you have initiative, you're the kind of person who gets up out of bed and feet hit the floor and you run, right? Like you are motivated, you are ready to go, and we want to see economic growth. So for number 1, folks, this would be capitalism. I'm just going to put CAP in there, okay? So the first one is capitalism. So what we're going to do here is switch over to our chart, and under capitalism, let's put competition. Let's also put focus on economic growth, and let's also put initiative. If I could spell it. Oops, there it is. Okay, so competition, focus on economic growth, and initiative. I'll just make that a little bit bigger here for us. Okay, so that's the first statement. Let's go back to the second one now. So the second one says we must aim for the progress of all. Okay, progress of all. That's important. Through an end to class distinctions. So we want to end class distinctions. When we say that, folks, we're talking about rich and poor by placing production in the hands of government planners. Economic disparity shall eventually disappear. So we want to get rid of economic disparity. So what economic system focuses on progress? So automatically it's going to be on the left, right? We have this idea of progress right here. We want to end class distinctions, so no more rich, no more poor, right? Everyone should be economically equal, and we have this idea of government planners. So guys, this idea of government planning is something known as a centrally planned economy, and in this case, this particular one would be communism. Okay, so let's go back to our chart and then let's start populating with these ideas. So over on the far left, we have communism. So we want to put progress to end class distinctions. I'm just going to put in brackets, no more rich or poor. All are equal. What else did we have in there? Let's just check this out. Oh yeah, government planners. We'll call it centrally planned economy. For those of you in Social 30-2, this idea of a centrally planned economy, I'm just going to make this bigger just like the other side, is a very important thing to know. Okay, we're going to put an asterisk beside this because rather than for some of your assignments, them using the term a communist economy, they might say characteristics of a centrally planned economy. Centrally planned economy is those three big economic questions: what to make, for whom to make it, and then how to get it in the hands of the people, right? For whom or how do we distribute it? That is answered strictly in a communist society by government. There is no free market. There is no supply and demand. Nothing like that. All right, let's go back to number three. Number three says, we must follow our leaders' national goals of military and economic strength through conquest to achieve a strong, unified, and well-organized nation. Okay, so follow our leader. That's important. National goals of military and economic strength. That's important. Yeah, and from this, guys, we get the idea of fascism. Okay, we get the idea of fascism. Okay, so I'm going to go to our little chart. We're going to go to the far right now. We're going to say obey leader, strong economy to help military. What else did we get in that one here? I don't know. Let's put in there too. There's also unity. I didn't highlight it, but unity for the strength of the nation. And again, I'll make this larger because it's a little hard to read. Okay, so obey the leader, strong economy to help the military, and then unity for the strength of the nation. So the guys, if you get any question that is about like following the leader, obedience is important, making the nation stronger, supplying stuff for the military, automatically you should be thinking fascism, right? It can sometimes be something else, but you should be leaning towards the far right in that case. All right, number 4. Few key industries operate in major resource areas and in essential public services such as transportation and communication should be owned by the state to ensure that they operate in the interest of all citizens. So it says a few key industries. Now, does that say all? No, it says a few. Now, state ownership means leftist ideology. Where we have state ownership, it is on the left. Okay, operate in major resource areas and essential public services such as transportation, communication should be owned by the state. Okay, owned by the state. So we're not talking total ownership, but we are talking some ownership. As a result, this would be socialism. Okay, so let's just put here state intervention in some key industries. And then let's just go back to where we were. All right, now let's just put, oops, intervention spelled wrong, boom. We'll say some ownership by government. And then over on the far left, we're going to put total ownership of, we'll say, productive forces by government. All right, so again, we're going to make this larger. So really, from this, folks, we can quickly see that really what differentiates the left of center socialist from the far left communist is the amount of government intervention in the economy. In socialism, there's a lot, but over here in communism, there's total, right? Total state ownership of the so-called means of production. All right, number 5, with respect to the economy, I believe that government must move towards a pure price system. Pure price system. Okay, so what we're talking about here, guys, is the idea of we use supply and demand to determine the cost of goods. Government is inefficient and results in a serious loss of potential initiative. Okay, so pure price system, supply and demand. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here? We have capitalism. When you hear that idea of supply and demand, you should be thinking capitalism. Okay, so let's go back to our chart and where there's capitalism. I'm just going to put this here. Sorry, it's work in progress. Okay, so supply and demand to determine pricing. Anything else in that one? Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so number 6, at times, some industries become so inefficient that they cannot be put on their feet except through nationalization by government. We're going to highlight the big term, nationalization. Boom. For example, iron and steel industries are so vital to the nation that their management should not be subject to the decisions of private persons. Other areas of the economy may operate under private control. Now, this last part that I highlighted here, it's in gray. If that wasn't there, I would argue that this would be communism. However, because we're seeing some state ownership and some private ownership, it has to be socialism. Because again, communism is total state ownership, 100%. This is like there's some state ownership, but then there's also some private ownership, right? So nationalization, that's a very important term here in Social 30. We're going to put, we're going to say some nationalization of the economy. We're going to double star that because it's important. And then we're going to say total nationalization of the economy. Would help if I could spell. There we go. So total versus some, right? And it's a matter of scale here, guys. It's a matter of scale. All right, number 7. I would argue that scarce resources should be used by the state. Okay, used by the state. And only for the purposes that strengthen the state militarily or industrially. The consumer benefits through the security thus achieved. So we, the people, benefit when the state is strong militarily or industrially. What could that be? Well, that is fascism, right? So let's go over to the far right and put strengthen, use the economy to strengthen the state militarily. All right, beautiful. Let's go back to where we were. Sorry, I should put fascism there. There we go. All right, number 8. I believe in an economy where the choice of consumers dictate what producers will make and the profit that producers will see. So consumers are important. And then also we see this idea of profit. Okay, so I believe in an economy where the choices of consumers dictate what producers will make and the profit they will see. Well, we've already sort of seen this, and this is, of course, a supply and demand scenario. Which one, again, is supply and demand? Oh, well, it's capitalism. Okay, so with that being said, let's go over to where it says capitalism, or say consumers determine the price of goods / services based on demand. And then what was the other thing we highlighted there? Profit. Focus on profit. Motive. Okay, I'm going to put an asterisk beside that. This idea of the profit motive, very important. I'll spell consumers right. Okay, awesome. All right, we got a pretty good start here so far. Let's keep rolling here, guys. Let's keep rolling. So number 9, all the important decisions of the economy are made by a central planning board. Central planning board. So all the important decisions are made by a central planning board, which has the overall responsibility for arranging production, distribution, and selling of every item. There's no emphasis on the selling of consumer goods for profit. So no emphasis on the selling of consumer goods for profit. So that doesn't even matter, right? With that being said, guys, centrally planned economy, well, we've talked about this already, right? And that would be communism. We have centrally planned economy in there. And let's just put here, no focus on profit. I'm just going to put production exists to advance the greater good and help the people. So no focus on profit, whereas in capitalism, right, total focus on profit motive, and production exists to advance the greater good. What are we talking about? Well, let's say there's forecast of a cold winter, and as a result, we know the people are going to need heavier winter jackets. Well, what does the state do? They commission factories to ensure that there is jackets and coats and things like that that are warm produced for the people. This helps contribute to the greater good. All right. Number 10. Oh, sorry. I should be putting here communism. Okay, number 10. Business owners are allowed to keep their private status, but they have to produce goods and make profits in the interest of the state. Corporations are encouraged to expand by being given the use of state capital and labor. The government itself is the largest buyer. So government itself is the largest buyer of services and goods. Highlight that too. And if the government wants military equipment, the production of consumer goods is cut back. All right, so business and owners or businesses, you know, it's quasi-capitalist, right? People are allowed to keep their private status, but at the same time, what we see here, folks, is this idea of the government being a contributor to the success of the business itself. And with that being said, this would be fascism. Okay, this is fascism. So let's go back to fascism. And what we're going to put here is the marriage of business and government. So fascism is the marriage of business and government. And maybe you've heard this term before, maybe you haven't, but it is a symbiotic relationship between government and business. So we have a symbiotic relationship. So the Latin term that's sometimes used is this idea of quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I scratch your back, right? They, it's like hand in glove, okay? They go together. They go together. And with this here, folks, what we see is business supporting government, government supporting business, okay? Sorry, let me just go back here to number 10. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Number 11, it says the government must ensure the rights of private property and private ownership of the state's productive forces. Private property and private ownership. It is through the ownership of this property that people will be motivated to fulfill the common good of society unwittingly. Okay, so they will fulfill the common good of society unwittingly. Okay, couple of really important ideas. First of all, what economic system are we talking about here? Well, it is capitalism, right? This is capitalism. And again, I don't expect you to know all these things, but this is an important discussion that we need to have to make sure we get these ideas. So private property, private ownership, let's get that into our chart here. So private property, and then private ownership of means of production, and that is defined as land, labor, and machinery. And then let's go over to communism just because it's a good thing to have here, and let's put public ownership of the means of production. And again, land, labor, and machinery. So typically we dichotomize a communist and a capitalist society. Here we have total private ownership. Here we have total public ownership. Public ownership means not one individual owns the means of production, but all do. If all own, all gain benefit equally from it. In a capitalist society where you have private ownership, if you are the owner of, let's say, a fleet of trucks for delivering, parts to a supplier or to a consumer, then you are the one, right, as the owner who benefits from that. So we see a very large difference when it comes to communism and capitalism as far as who benefits. In capitalism, it's individuals. In communism, it is the entire collective, theoretically speaking. Okay, going back to it here, sorry. The common good of society. So, guys, this idea of the common good of society, we're going to put the invisible hand of capitalism. And what we're talking about here, guys, is the unintended social benefit of greed. I will say pursuing self-interest. And let's face it, guys, in a capitalist society, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get rich. You're trying to provide for yourself. You're trying to make money. Now, Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, and you know what? We're going to put him right up at the top because he's pretty darn important to what we're trying to achieve here. Okay, so we're going to put the name Adam Smith. Under communism, let's put the names Marx and Engels. Because they're kind of a big deal when it comes to communism, right? Adam Smith, very important. Adam Smith, when he spoke about capitalism, he said that by individuals trying to provide for themselves, what happens is in the capitalist system, well, you have to figure out a product or service that other people are going to buy. Now, why are they going to buy that product or service? They're going to buy that product or service because they gain some sort of advantage from it. So they win because they get an advantage from your product or service. You win because of the fact that you gain their money from them buying your product or service. So as a result, ladies and gentlemen, there's this unintended social benefit people's needs and wants are satisfied through you as a capitalist pursuing profit. Crazy idea, right? So Adam Smith would actually argue that self-interest, looking out for yourself, is really, really important. Whereas in a communist society, or even a socialist one, there's a relative lack of self-interest, and it's more so about the common good or the collective interest of most people. All right, and then the last one for this video, guys, number 12, true personal freedom and liberty can only be achieved when people's basic needs have been met. So true personal freedom and liberty can only be achieved when people's basic needs have been met. Let's just highlight that. That might be important. For this to happen, a social system that decentralizes the ownership of the state's productive forces. Whew. So a social system that decentralizes the ownership of the state's productive forces is required. Freedom is accomplished only when all economic forces are held in a common trust by all citizens. So all economic forces are held in a common trust. Let's highlight that. Holy cow. All right, so with this, guys, what we have is this idea of, I would argue in this case, we have communism. Okay, we have communism. Now, it says all economic forces are held in a common trust. Not most, not some, but all. Capitalism would be none. Communism is total. Socialism is some, right? So there's a difference in, again, the extent to which we see state or government intervention in the economy. So as a result, guys, let's get these ideas down in our chart. So we're going to go into all three of them here, okay? So let's go to communism, because that's what this one is. And we're going to say, sorry, let me just go back to what we were at here. Okay. So we're going to say decentralized ownership of property. Or we're going to say total, or totally decentralized ownership of property. Let's put under socialism, some decentralization of ownership of property. And then under capitalism, what we want to put here is the idea of total centralization of ownership of property. All right. Yeah, so that's our first 12 here, folks. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Again, you can always fire me off a message if you're not really sure what's going on, if you're not really too confident when it comes to where you or which economic system applies to these. Just fire me off an email, right? I love to answer questions. And yeah, this should be beautiful. Okay, we'll continue on number 13 through 24 in the next video. Okay, guys, peace, love you as always, and we'll talk to you later.